Every day we wake up to news that reminds us of how fragile life truly is. Today, the world lost four remarkable American legends, people who inspired us, entertained us, and shaped our culture in ways we'll never forget. Their stories remind us that greatness isn't about how long we live. It's about the mark we leave behind. It was a quiet morning when the news broke. The world of theater and television had lost one of its kindest souls. Jerry Adler, the veteran actor, director, and producer, passed away peacefully on August 23, 2025. He was 96 years old. The announcement came with an air of reflection, as those who knew his work remembered a man who carried the stage in his blood and kindness in his heart. Born in Brooklyn, New York on February 4, 1929, Jerry grew up surrounded by the language of the stage. His family's roots ran deep in the Yiddish-theatre. His great-uncle, Jacob Pavlovich Adler, had been a legendary performer, and his cousins, Stella and Luther Adler, were also respected actors. To say that Jerry was destined for the spotlight would be an understatement. It was almost as if the stage had been waiting for him. But Jerry's path to fame wasn't immediate. He began behind the curtains, quietly shaping the magic that others performed. He worked as a stage manager and production supervisor on Broadway throughout the 1950s and 60s, helping bring some of theater's biggest moments to life. From the apple tree to the man in the glass booth, he became known for his steady hand and dedication to the craft. Yet, for all his success backstage, Jerry's heart longed for something more, to step out from behind the curtain and speak directly to the audience. That moment didn't come until later in life. Most actors find fame early. Jerry found it in his 60s. His late-blooming career on screen was nothing short of inspiring. He began appearing in television shows and films, earning praise for his calm, warm presence and subtle humor. Audiences might not have known his long history in theater, but they felt his experience in every performance. Many remember him most for his role as Hesh Rabkin on The Sopranos. As the wise and seasoned music producer who offered Tony Soprano both advice and quiet judgment, Jerry brought depth to every scene. His calm voice, thoughtful pauses, and quiet intensity made Hesh one of the show's most memorable recurring characters. In interviews, Jerry often spoke about the irony of finding fame so late. "It's funny," he once said, smiling. "I worked behind the scenes for decades, and then suddenly people start recognizing me on the street." It was a reflection of his humility, the kind of man who measured success not by attention, but by the satisfaction of doing meaningful work. Beyond The Sopranos, Jerry Adler's career spanned across decades and genres. He appeared in beloved television shows like The Good Wife, Mad About You, and Rescue Me. On film, he took roles that reflected his natural charm and wisdom, often playing mentors, fathers, or gentle guides. His performances had an honesty that came from a life fully lived, from understanding struggle, patience, and the quiet pursuit of excellence. Friends and co-stars often described him as a true gentleman. Michael Imperioli, his Sopranos co-star, wrote on social media, "Jerry had a rare grace, a quiet strength that made everyone around him better. Working with him was a privilege." Those who knew him personally said that Jerry never stopped being a student of the craft. Even in his later years, he would still attend rehearsals and readings, offering thoughtful advice to younger actors. To him, acting wasn't just a profession, it was a living art form, something sacred. As a director and producer, his fingerprints could be found on many Broadway productions that defined an era. He helped mount major shows and worked alongside some of the greatest talents of his time. His early years taught him discipline, timing, and the invisible power of those who work quietly behind the scenes. When he finally became the face on the stage, he carried that wisdom with him. Jerry Adler's life was proof that it's never too late to start again. His second act, the one in front of the camera, inspired many who thought their best years were behind them. He often said, "There's no expiration date on creativity." It became a quiet mantra for those who admired him. At home, Jerry was known to be a devoted husband, father, and grandfather. He preferred quiet family gatherings to big Hollywood events. Friends said he had a warm laugh that filled a room, and that he never forgot the people who helped him along the way. "He was one of those rare souls who remembered your name years later," said a longtime colleague. That's the kind of respect he carried. As news of his passing spread, tributes poured in from across the entertainment world. The Actors Equity Association released a statement calling him a bridge between generations of theater artists whose kindness and professionalism defined an era. On social media, fans shared favorite moments from The Sopranos, The Good Wife, and Transparent, remembering how effortlessly he brought life to every character. Even in the quietest roles, Jerry Adler had presence. His eyes always carried a story, his voice carried warmth. Viewers often said he made them feel at ease, as though he wasn't acting at all, but simply letting them see a part of his soul. He worked well into his 90s, a testament to his passion and energy. In interviews from his later years, he was reflective but never regretful. "I've lived a full life," he once said. "I've been lucky to do what I love, and that's more than most people can say." That quiet gratitude became the essence of who he was. Not a man chasing fame, but one who simply loved the craft. In the world of entertainment, where youth and speed often overshadow experience, Jerry stood as a reminder of what truly endures: skill, patience, and heart. He represented a generation of performers who valued rehearsal, respect, and the sacred bond between actor and audience. In remembering Jerry Adler, we remember the beauty of late beginnings. We remember the courage it takes to reinvent oneself when the world has already decided who you are. We remember that art, at its best, belongs to those who never stop learning. His story will continue to inspire not only actors, but anyone who believes that it's never too late to find your voice. His legacy isn't just in the shows he worked on or the roles he played, but in the quiet message his life left behind. That passion never fades with age, and true art is timeless. As the curtain falls on Jerry Adler's remarkable journey, his presence will be missed but never forgotten. The lights on Broadway, the glow of a television set, the warmth of a stage, they all carry a piece of his spirit, and somewhere, perhaps in an empty theater after the applause has faded, we can imagine Jerry smiling that familiar smile, content, humble, and grateful. A man who spent his life telling stories and in doing so, became one worth remembering. Jerry Adler's name will forever echo through the halls of stage and screen, a testament to talent, perseverance, and the gentle power of grace. The art world fell silent this October as news spread that Milton Esterow, one of America's most respected voices in cultural journalism, had passed away. He died on October 3, 2025, at the age of 97. The confirmation came quietly, but its weight was deeply felt across newsrooms, galleries, and museums. For more than half a century, Milton Esterow had been a steady light, exposing truths, celebrating artists, and reminding readers that art was never separate from the human story. Born in Brooklyn on July 28, 1928, Milton grew up in a world that was still rebuilding from the Great Depression. He wasn't born into art, he discovered it. As a young man, he worked his way up from a copy boy at the New York Times, a job that offered no glamour, but gave him a front-row seat to history being written every day. He listened, observed, and learned how words could shape understanding. Those lessons would later define his life's work. Through persistence and curiosity, Milton climbed the ranks at the Times. He began writing, then editing, always chasing stories that mattered. In the 1950s and 60s, when the art world was shifting toward modernism, Milton was one of the few journalists treating it with the same seriousness given to politics or finance. He believed that art was not just about beauty. It was about truth, power, and identity. In 1972, he made a decision that would forever change cultural journalism. He bought Art News, a struggling magazine with a rich history but uncertain future. At a time when print publications were shrinking, Milton saw opportunity. Under his leadership, ART News transformed into one of the most trusted and fearless voices in the art community. He turned it into a platform that didn't just celebrate art, it investigated it. Milton's editorial vision was bold. He encouraged his writers to dig deeper, to question authenticity, money, and motive. His team broke groundbreaking stories about stolen art, forgeries, and museum ethics. One of his most memorable contributions was his reporting on Nazi-looted artworks, pieces, stolen from Jewish families during World War II that had resurfaced. Decades later in private collections and prestigious museums, it wasn't easy work. These investigations took years, often facing resistance from powerful figures. But Milton never backed down. "Art deserves honesty," he once said in an interview. "Because if we can't tell the truth about beauty, what can we tell the truth about?" Those words became the moral compass for generations of cultural reporters who followed in his path. Friends remember him as calm and meticulous, with a quiet fire in his eyes. He never raised his voice, but he spoke with conviction. A former colleague once said, "Milton taught us that journalism could protect the soul of art." That lesson echoed in every newsroom he touched. Under his guidance, ART News won multiple awards and grew a global readership. His influence extended far beyond the magazine. He set a new standard for how art was covered. Reporters began treating art scandals, thefts, and discoveries with the depth and respect they deserved. Museums, collectors, and artists alike knew that if Milton Esterow was paying attention, the story mattered. But for all his achievements, Milton carried himself with humility. He was not a man of headlines, he was a man of purpose. He preferred quiet mornings with his wife Fern and spoke often about how love and patience had carried him through a long, demanding career. He believed that kindness and curiosity were the two tools every journalist should have, a longtime friend said. As the years passed, Milton remained active in the art world well into his 90s. He gave lectures, consulted for museums, and continued to write with clarity and grace. Even as technology changed how people consumed art, his voice remained timeless, steady, thoughtful, and deeply human. When news of his passing reached the art community, tributes poured in. The Metropolitan Museum of Art released a statement calling him a champion of truth in an industry built on perception. The New York Times, his professional home for decades, wrote that his integrity shaped the modern language of cultural reporting. One of the most touching tributes came from an art historian who had been mentored by him early in her career. "Milton once told me," she recalled, "your job isn't to make people like art, it's to help them see it. Really see it." I've carried that with me every day. Those who worked with him described how every editorial meeting began the same way. A soft voice, a half smile, and a question. What's the real story here? It was never about gossip or prestige. It was about uncovering meaning. Through his writing, Milton Esterow changed how we think about culture. He revealed how art connects to justice, politics, and morality. His reporting on stolen art led to the recovery of priceless works and brought long-denied recognition to families affected by war. His magazine gave unknown artists their first national exposure and held powerful institutions accountable when they fell short. Beyond his professional legacy, Milton's story is also one of perseverance. He began with nothing more than curiosity and a pencil. He stayed true to his principles when others chased headlines, and he built a career not out of ambition, but out of love. Love for truth, love for creativity, love for humanity expressed through art. As age caught up with him, Milton continued to believe in the importance of curiosity. In one of his last interviews, he said, "There's always something more to learn, even in your final chapter. Curiosity keeps you alive." Those words feel especially poignant now, a reminder of how he lived. Family members shared that in his final days. He was surrounded by warmth, by his books, his wife, and the countless memories of a life well lived. "He never stopped asking questions," his daughter said softly. Even when he couldn't write anymore, he was still curious about everything. Today, as we look back on Milton Esterow's extraordinary journey, we see a man who built bridges between art and truth. He believed that storytelling was sacred work, that uncovering a hidden painting or exposing a forgotten injustice could, in its own way, restore a small piece of the world's balance. He showed that journalism, at its finest, doesn't just inform, it enlightens. And while the presses have long since stopped rolling under his watch, his influence still hums in every thoughtful review, every investigative piece, every quiet article that dares to ask why. Milton Esterow's name will forever stand as a reminder that art and integrity are inseparable. That truth itself is a form of beauty. As the world moves forward, his voice lingers, calm, steady, and clear. A voice that taught us to look closer, think deeper, and never stop questioning. And in that way, Milton Esterow will never truly fade. His legacy lives on, in every museum light, every page turned, and every curious heart that still believes that art, above all else, tells the story of who we are. It was a gray autumn morning in London when the sad news was confirmed. John Woodvine, one of Britain's most respected and enduring actors, had passed away on October 6, 2025. He was 96 years old. The news spread quietly across the British arts community, through theaters, television sets, and film circles, leaving a deep sense of loss among those who had admired his work for decades. For more than 70 years, John Woodvine's voice had carried across stages and screens with calm authority and emotional depth. He was the kind of actor who didn't chase fame. He built it slowly through discipline, patience, and respect for his craft. His passing marked not only the end of a remarkable career, but also the fading of a generation of British actors who believed that every line, every pause, every gesture was sacred. Born on July 21st, 1929, in Tyne-Dock, South Shields, John came from a working-class family. His father was a shipbuilder, a world far removed from theater. Yet even as a young boy, John was drawn to storytelling. He once said in an old interview, "I never dreamed of being famous. I just wanted to be part of something that made people feel." That quiet honesty would stay with him for life. After serving in the military, John trained at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, where his natural presence and deep, commanding voice quickly stood out. He joined the prestigious Old Vic Company, beginning a lifelong love affair with Shakespeare and classical theater. From Macbeth to Lear, from Othello to Falstaff, he brought depth and humanity to every role. His performances were never loud or showy. They were grounded, real, and deeply felt. Colleagues described him as a true actor's actor. He believed that acting was about service, serving the story, serving the audience, and serving the truth. A longtime friend once said, "John didn't act for applause. He acted for understanding." He wanted people to leave the theater thinking about what it means to be human. In the 1960s and 70s, Woodvine began appearing on television, where his calm strength and gravitas found new audiences. He became known to millions through roles in popular British dramas like Z-Cars, Dixon of Dock Green, and The Troubleshooters. He had a gift for portraying men of integrity, detectives, judges, military officers, characters who carried quiet authority and moral weight. One of his most acclaimed television performances came in the 1978 BBC series The Brontes of Haworth, where he portrayed Patrick Bronte, the stern but loving father of the famous literary family. His portrayal was praised for its tenderness and emotional restraint, capturing both the strength and vulnerability of a man burdened by loss. Film audiences will also remember him from An American Werewolf in London, the 1981 horror classic in which he played Dr. Hirsch, a character both rational and empathetic. Even in genre films, John brought authenticity and gravity, grounding the story in something believable. He could make even the smallest role feel significant. Through the decades, John Woodvine never stopped working. His career spanned everything from Shakespearean tragedies to modern thrillers. He appeared in Waking the Dead, Doctors, and New Tricks, showing that his talent only deepened with time. His voice, rich and resonant, became a signature, the kind of sound that could fill a theater or soften a scene with quiet emotion. Off-screen, John was known for his humility. He didn't seek the spotlight, and he rarely gave interviews. Friends and colleagues often spoke of his generosity, how he mentored young actors, offering quiet guidance without ego. "He taught us that greatness doesn't shout," one younger performer wrote on social media. "It listens, it studies, and it gives back." His wife, actress Lynn Farley, shared in many of his creative passions. The two often worked in the same circles, supporting each other through the ever-changing world of theater. Their marriage was a partnership built on art, love, and deep respect. "He never saw himself as a star," Lynn once said. "He saw himself as a storyteller. That was what mattered to him most." In interviews, John often spoke about the simplicity of good acting. "It's about truth," he said. "If you believe what you're saying, so will the audience." Those who watched him perform knew exactly what he meant. Whether on a grand Shakespearean stage or in a quiet television drama, he always found the truth. As the decades went by, Woodvine became a familiar face to generations who might not have known his early stage work. His calm demeanor and gentle smile made him a reassuring presence on British screens. Critics described him as a man who brought dignity to every performance. When news of his passing was announced, tributes poured in from across the acting community. The Royal Shakespeare Company released a statement calling him a master of craft and grace, whose contribution to British theater will be remembered for generations. Actor David Morrissey wrote, "John Woodvine taught me what professionalism truly means. He carried wisdom in his silence and kindness in his words." Younger actors who had shared the stage with him described him as a rock. One tribute read, "He was never too busy to rehearse one more scene, to share one more note, to encourage someone just starting out. He made you feel like you belonged." Even in his final years, John remained connected to his roots in the theater. He often attended small productions, sitting quietly in the back, supporting new talent. He loved watching others grow, believing that theater was a living organism that needed nurturing. He would sit there, one director recalled, and afterward say, "You're doing good work. Keep the truth alive." It meant everything to hear that from him. His passing leaves behind a remarkable body of work, over 70 years of dedication, resilience, and artistry. From the Royal Shakespeare Company to the BBC, from stage lights to camera lenses, John Woodvine left his mark with quiet precision. But perhaps his greatest legacy lies not in awards or recognition, but in the values he carried through his craft. Respect for the story, humility before the audience, love for the language, and faith that art, done with sincerity, could touch hearts across time. He often said that the theater was a mirror of life, sometimes clear, sometimes cracked, but always honest. Those words now feel like a reflection of his own journey. A man who faced life's roles, both on and off stage, with honesty, grace, and a deep sense of purpose. As we remember John Woodvine, we remember more than an actor. We remember a craftsman, a teacher, a believer in the enduring power of words and emotions. His performances may have ended, but his influence will continue, carried by the countless artists he inspired and the audiences who still feel the quiet strength of his presence. In theaters across Britain, some paused that night to dim their lights in his memory, a gesture of respect for a man who gave his life to the stage. The silence that followed said it all. John Woodvine's story is one of perseverance and purpose, a story of a man who showed that true greatness doesn't demand attention. It earns it, one line, one performance, one heart at a time. And though his voice has fallen silent, its echo remains. In every performance that seeks truth, in every young actor who learns to listen before speaking, in every audience member moved by something real, John Woodvine will be remembered not just as a British stage titan, but as a symbol of artistic integrity, a man who lived for the story, respected the craft, and left behind a legacy written in the language of truth. May his curtain fall gently on a life beautifully performed. The news of Tony Conter's passing was met with quiet sorrow across Britain's entertainment world. At 88 years old, the veteran actor, best known for his role as Roy Evans in EastEnders, took his final bow surrounded by family. His death marked the end of a remarkable journey that spanned more than 5 decades, a life dedicated to storytelling, humor, and humanity. For many, Tony Conter wasn't just a face on the screen. He was a presence, steady, kind, and instantly familiar. From the small living rooms where families gathered each evening to watch EastEnders, to the science fiction worlds of Doctor Who and Blake's Seven, Tony brought truth and warmth to every performance. His passing feels like the loss of a neighbor, a friend, or a familiar figure who had quietly become part of everyday life. Born in Southampton in 1937, Tony's path to acting wasn't instant fame. After completing national service with the Royal Air Force, he trained at the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art, a place that shaped his discipline and voice. Those who studied alongside him remembered a young man filled with laughter and calm determination. He wasn't loud or demanding. He let his work speak for him. In the early 1960s, Tony began appearing on British television in shows like Z-Cars, The Avengers, and Softly Softly. These small roles helped him build a quiet reputation for reliability, the kind of actor producers could trust. He wasn't chasing stardom. He was building a craft. His performances carried a natural sincerity that made every character feel believable. It was in the 1990s, however, that Tony Conter became a household name. Cast as Roy Evans in the BBC soap opera EastEnders, he captured hearts with his portrayal of a gentle, hard-working man trying to hold his family together. His on-screen chemistry with actress Pam St. Clement, who played Pat Butcher, was deeply admired by fans. Their relationship, filled with ups, downs, forgiveness, and humor, felt strikingly real. When news broke of his passing, tributes poured in from former castmates and fans alike. Pam St. Clement shared, "Tony was a gentleman in every sense of the word. Working with him was effortless. He brought kindness and dignity to every scene." Others echoed her words online, calling him one of the last of the true British character actors. Outside the studio, Tony lived a private, peaceful life. He preferred quiet walks in the countryside and spending time with his wife and children. Away from fame, he found joy in simplicity, gardening, reading, and watching football on weekends. For those who knew him personally, his laughter was soft but infectious, and his patience was endless. In interviews, Tony often reflected on what acting meant to him. He once said, "You don't act to be seen, you act to make people feel something. If they believe you for just a moment, you've done your job." That humility defined his entire career. He didn't seek attention. He sought connection. Even beyond EastEnders, Tony's versatility shone. He played roles in Doctor Who alongside Jon Pertwee in the 1970s, appeared in the classic sci-fi Blake's 7, and featured in period dramas and detective series across decades. Each time he transformed, never the same man twice, yet always unmistakably authentic. After retiring from acting, Tony continued to support local theater and young actors, often attending small performances to encourage newcomers. A close friend recalled, he believed the stage was sacred. He'd sit quietly in the back row and clap the loudest when the curtain fell. His passing, confirmed by family in late October, brought a wave of nostalgia and gratitude across social media. One message read, "Rest easy, Mr. Evans. You made our evenings brighter." Another wrote, "He was the kind of actor who made fiction feel like family." As tributes continue to arrive, Tony's legacy remains in the countless hours of television that carry his touch. His characters, whether kind, flawed, or brave, reflected the quiet dignity of everyday life. In a world that often celebrates noise and fame, Tony reminded us of the power of subtlety. He leaves behind a generation of actors who watched and learned from his grace, and millions of viewers who still remember his gentle smile. His career was never about spotlight or headlines. It was about heart, the quiet kind that stays long after the credits roll. And so, as we say goodbye to Tony Conter, we remember the warmth he brought to our screens and the kindness he shared with those who knew him. His work will continue to play in reruns and memories, reminding us that true greatness doesn't shout. It whispers softly, with honesty and care. Tony Conter's story is one of humility, dedication, and love for the craft. Though the cameras have stopped rolling, his light remains, flickering through the scenes that once made us laugh, cry, and believe. He will be remembered as he lived, a gentleman of British television, whose heart quietly shaped the art of performance for generations to come.